objective tonight to try to save you some money. I really can't stand it when people pay too much for the services provided, or even when I was talking to Donna earlier today, she had stories to tell, and we probably all do. I know one of the industry issues out there right now is that the technology seems to advance faster than the ability of people to keep up with the technology to fix the cars. And the training is certainly available for dealership technicians. So when you work in a dealership, you have availability to the websites that they have for training and keeping up. And fortunately for those technicians, they can usually do it on the clock, so you get paid to be trained. It's the independent technicians at the mom and pop shops, for lack of a better term, that have a harder time with keeping up, with the training to fix these high-tech cars. So my objective today is to just try to give you some knowledge. Knowledge is power. Hopefully you can make better decisions on your vehicle, considering that it is considered the second biggest investment, besides your house. I don't know if I'd call a car an investment, though I'd have people say, oh yeah, I bought a Bentley for an investment. Cars are not an investment because they rust, and no matter what, you could park it in the garage, never drive it for 10 years, and it'll still get rust on it. So at any rate, this is kind of like my bio, so to speak. I taught at Triton College for 34 years in automotive repair. I actually got an Associate of Arts degree in music from Oakton College. Then I decided to be a shop teacher for one reason. Music teachers weren't getting jobs. So I went to career planning and placement. And my dad was a mechanic, so I was always around cars. They said that if you want to be a teacher, best thing would be to teach special ed. And I just felt I didn't have the patience for special ed. So I said, what else? They said, well, shop, electronics, automotive repair. So I went that route and taught high school for 7 years. And who ended up in my shop classes? The special ed kids. But they loved my classes, and school wasn't such a drag anymore, because when you have a class that you enjoy. And ASE certified in automotive service, taught at Triton, as I mentioned. At any rate, probably the one thing that doesn't fit here is the second one from the bottom, and that's board member of the Association of Professional Orchestra Leaders, because I stuck with the music thing over the years and still do that, as kind of like my retirement project, so to speak. How things have changed. At one time, everybody owned horses, only the rich owned cars. Now, everybody has cars, only the rich own horses. So it goes to show how things have changed. Perhaps early automotive lacked dependability. You had to hand crank an engine, which sometimes caused broken arms and things like that. That we'll probably get a short video on that a little bit later. But because hand cranking was difficult, the engines were low compression. So they weren't very dependable, they weren't very efficient, and they were about 4-to-1 compression. We'll get into what that is in a minute, just because how could you hand crank a modern 8-to-1 compression engine? When I was young, all the automakers would advertise, basically everybody should have a car. Everybody should have a car. It was a big deal when our family got the second car. Wow, we have 2 cars. And now my sister and I had to schedule the use of the second car. What do we have now in families? I know for a while when my kids were living at home, we had 9 cars for the 5 of us, and we had 7 motorcycles. So how things have changed. The purchase of the car, what I'm trying to avoid here is buyer's remorse. When you go to the store to buy milk and bread, you buy milk and bread. When you go to a dealership, you don't go there to buy the car tonight, okay? It takes time to research buying a car. Of course, the person who greets you you know, what's the saying? I think I put it down here. Well, salespeople are trained to get the most money out of you. The saying is get their friendship, get their confidence, get their trust, then get their money. And my Patrick Cadillac story goes back quite a number of years. That I was driving by and I saw this red Caddy with spoked rims and a black vinyl top. And it just said, "Buy me," all over it. So I pull in, and I was actually saving money at the time because I wanted a Buick Regal. And I had finally saved enough money. So the salesperson comes out and she says, "You got a good eye, my man." I remember quoting her perfectly. And I said, "Yeah, but God, this car's so beautiful, but I can't afford it. I just saved enough money to buy a Buick Regal." And she says, "Take that money, put it as a down payment for this car." And for about 3 seconds, I actually thought about it. I'm like, no, Dad said never finance a car. Buy the car you can afford, because if you lose your job, you know, they won't come and, you know, repossess the car from you. So, you know, analyze your needs. Americans don't buy cars they can afford. Why do people buy Silverados? Because do they need to haul plywood, or do they need a Silverado because they're cool? Okay, they're, you know, and nothing against Silverados. I got 2 sons, they both have Silverados. But they're not contractors. They don't need them. They got them because they're cool. And what do they do? What do my kids do? They complain about fuel prices. Why are you driving a Silverado and then complain about fuel prices? And one of my sons has a Chevy Volt. Great idea. He lives in Glendale Heights, works down in the city. He drives downtown basically for free. And then he plugs it in down there and he drives home. And it's got a gas engine too, so if the voltage ever drops too low, the gas engine kicks on. It's really, in my opinion, the way to go. What can you afford? One of my examples, don't finance a car in case you lose your job. The dealers really push this, don't they? They really want you to finance it because they get a kick. They get money from the finance company. So my daughter was closing the deal, and they said, okay, she really worked him down. And she found out that the car had been on the lot for ages, and they really wanted to get rid of it. And finally they said, well, we'll do it for that price if you finance it. But then we could pay it off a month later. Well, the finance company kind of gets, you know, the raw end of that deal, because they're paying commission to the dealership, and then we pay it off. And you know, so just like financing a home, your first few payments probably don't even go toward the principal. So I urge you to buy a car that you can afford. What is the doc fee? The doc fee. It's short for documentation fee. Now, when you go to buy something at Home Depot, do you have to pay a doc fee for the paperwork? You know, but dealers do that. And I was ready to close the deal in a van and said, okay, I'll do it. You waive the doc fee. And I don't want to say the name, but they're not in business anymore. Said, Mr. Hoskins wants his doc fee. Said, well, I know he wants his doc fee, but you want to close the deal, you waive the doc fee. It's like $150 for what? Paperwork. So consider that. When you're ready to close the deal, depending on how desperate they are, waive the doc fee. They expect you to bargain. Don't pay their price. The extended warranty. They really push you on the warranty. Salesman pushes you. You kind of close the deal, now you go to the finance person, they do it. Are you trying to sell me a piece of garbage? Is that why you're pushing me on the warranty? So I don't buy the extended warranty. One man's opinion. Stay late at night. They want to close. They want to go home. And I remember buying a vehicle at Woodfield Chevy. The kids were little, and they were jumping in and out of every car in the showroom. There's more to it, but we don't have time for it. My wife was so nervous. She goes, oh, I got to take the kids home. I'm like, no, this is great. Let them jump in and out of every car in the showroom. They'll want to get rid of us. Another technique that worked for us. They'll Third, last one I mentioned already, how long has the car been on the lot? How desperate are they? Give them the final offer and your phone number. I've told them if someone else wants to pay that price, they can have the car. If not, call me. Sometimes it takes me 6 months to buy a car, but I end up getting the one I want for the price I want. One of them, I bought a Camaro. I got it outside of Cook County. Great deal. I knew they had it for a long time, and Cook County sent me a tax bill. So you bought the car in DuPage County, you're driving it in Cook County, so they wanted their, happened to one of my sons too. What's this bill? I said, hey, you live in Cook County, get used to it. If it's a used car, does it have the owner's manual in the glove box? Does it have extra key fobs? Does it have a spare tire? Okay, is it a certified used car? If you buy it from a dealership, a GM dealership as an example, they have certified used car status, and it works. My wife's got a 2016 Equinox. We bought it used. What is that, 7 years old now? Her wiper stopped working. So she brought it to the local garage that I love, and they could have sold her a wiper repair. He looks it up and goes, by the way, you have a certified warranty still on this thing, and there's a recall on it. So he basically told, go to the dealer, and it's free. Consumerism, what does it mean when my check engine light turns on? And what's the correct fuel to buy? How does my tire pressure affect fuel economy? How do I find and keep a good mechanic? And basic maintenance you can do yourself. That's a short slide, because there's not much you can do anymore yourself. What kind of fuel should you buy? A lot of misconceptions on this. All right, so what kind of fuel should I buy? Well, I'll jump right to the last slide. The cheapest, okay, is the best kind of fuel to buy. So I remember my father-in-law had bought a Dodge Caravan, new, and I said, what kind of fuel do you use? He goes, oh, only the best for this baby. I said, no, don't, especially in the winter. Okay, you don't need premium fuel in the winter. And I mean, my car, it says I need, I think, 93 octane. I don't even know where you can buy 93 octane. And there's so many like cause and effects that octane booster affects volatility, which affects the car to starting up on a cold day. So there's only a few of us old enough to remember these. When I looked this up, when I enlarge this, it looks like it says 29 cents. Okay, and notice how there's only one spigot hanging off, because we had gasoline is all we needed. So after World War II, automakers wanted to get what they called 1 horsepower per cubic inch of the engine. That required premium fuel. They called it ethyl, right? Ethylene. But nowadays, what do we have now? I mean, which one do you pick? And the reason why, so instead of just memorizing, let's see, Bill said to pick that. No, I'd like you to understand this. That basically, if we have a hot spot here in the engine, what they call the N gases, or the air-fuel mixture, can ignite before the spark plug ignites the mixture. So now the piston's kind of moving up and creating pressure. If you were here a little early, we kind of saw the video on that. Looks like the top of this piston has like some carbon buildup, and that is going to create a hot spot and cause some fuel to begin to burn before the spark. Well, here our power stroke starts. Our spark kicks off the air-fuel mixture, and now we have 2 flames. This is bad news. It's inefficient, it's a waste, and more than anything, it damages your engine and gives you an audible knocking noise. So here's our 2 flames colliding over on the right. And when you, let's say, how do you fight fire? With fire. So that's what's happening here. And that impact is so great, it can actually put holes in the piston. It can damage the cylinder wall right along here. What's more common, pre-ignition or detonation? Basically, what's the difference? We know pre-ignition. A hot spot starts to flame before the spark. Well, detonation is a little opposite. The spark starts, and the heat from that causes the N gases, the rest of the unburned fuel, to ignite, and we have the same effect. And the effect is more than one flame in the cylinder. So to answer a question, pre-ignition occurs on that compression stroke. Detonation occurs on the power stroke. Which one has more pressure? Well, the power stroke, because that's what drives the crankshaft and propels the vehicle down the road. All right, so normal combustion, one flame, and it pushes the piston down. It's not an explosion. It's kind of like when lightning hits a tree. The lightning stops, tree starts on fire, and now sends the flame to other trees. All right, we want a controlled burn and not an explosion. Whether it's pre-ignition or detonation, the sound is the same. Hear how it's nice there? So that's piston damaging detonation on a motorcycle. I wouldn't drive too long that way because it's going to cause piston ring damage, damage at the top of the piston. Here's the side of your piston. So what does that have to do with anything? Well, a major factor in knock is the compression ratio. So when in the movie they showed at the bottom dead center, how much volume do we have up here at top dead center? So there's formulas involved. And the higher the compression, the more the octane you would need. Now these hand crank engines were about 4-to-1. Normal compression is 8-to-1. High performance engines can be 10-to-1 or higher. All right, so the sound's not really good on this. Grab this hand crank. Turn the ignition switch on. Watch his thumb.
Be careful with this. You can't do it like that. You must have your thumb behind, otherwise you can break your thumb. So come around here. I'm going to give it a few turns. There we go.
All right, small engine and hand crankable. All right. He talked about his thumb. Rather than gripping the handle like a baseball bat, he put his thumb over here, because if it kicks back, it'll pull your thumb out of socket. So that's what he was referring to there. All right, so what's octane? The fuel's ability to resist knock. I like these numbers. $2.24. Well, that's 10 times more than our first gas pump in the thing. But all right, so what do these numbers mean? And what do these numbers mean? Most all fuel nowadays has 10% ethanol. The gas companies do that because they get a tax break. And it helps the farmers, and it's cleaner, and it reduces our dependency on foreign oil. I don't know what state this is here, why there's no ethanol added. But it says ethanol is an octane booster. So these high octane engines like octane booster. So, all right, so this is the car I drove here tonight. So 05, it talks about the engine, improved breathing over the 10.9 versus 10.1 the previous year. The suggested octane is 93. What kind of fuel do I use? Okay, I use the cheapest I can find. You know why? Because I'm cheap. Okay, I work hard for my money, and I don't want to give it away. This morning today, I spent $4.08 for a gallon of E15. So we'll get into that in a few before this is done here. The octane boosters, we used to use lead in the old days. It was cheap and effective, but the disadvantage, it was cancer causing. carbon deposit formation, and catalytic converter damage. So when the CATs came out in 75, we had to stop using, we didn't take lead out, we just stopped putting lead in and used a more expensive booster like methanol. Though it's cheap and an effective octane booster, it's corrosive. But if we take methanol and turn it into an ether, methyl tertiary butyl ether is derived by turning ethanol into an ether. It was cheap and effective octane booster, but it caused water pollution. Finally, grain alcohol is ethanol. Advantage, well, it's not as cheap of an octane booster, but it's a good oxygenate, it's a good booster. And if we go over 10% though, we need more robust fuel system components. All right. Now, E85, 85%. If you have a yellow gas cap, you should be using E85. All right. It's substantially cheaper. It's high octane and helps our farmers. It cuts down on, I want to say global warming. We don't call it that anymore, do we? Climate change. Okay. So, my mom, my 91-year-old mom, didn't know she had E85. I said, what color is the gas cap, Mom? You know, she just said, oh, I thought they used that because it looks cool, you know, yellow gas cap. But if you have an E85 car, you know that you don't get as good a mileage. All right, so your mileage isn't as good, but it's substantially cheaper. Yeah, you'll fill up a little bit more. It's a trade-off on the mileage, but it's better for the environment for sure. All right, and I really like these numbers over here on the right. All right, so you got your E85, and but again, the fuel system components have to be more durable, so you don't put it into a regular car designed for E10. Diesel number 2 and 91, 89, so your various octanes. You know, which one do you pick? That's a thought-provoking question. What's E15? You can get that in Illinois. I bought it today because I've got an 05, so everything since 2005 and newer. To me, the higher the alcohol content, the better, but my car's not compatible for E85. My wife's got E85 also. Problem is, you just can't find it everywhere. So I know I got it, the E15 that is, at Thornton's today. So E15, 50% alcohol, 85% gasoline versus 10% normal fuel. The higher the alcohol content, the cheaper the fuel, and the higher the octane. So here your E15 is what, $2.44, 50 cents more for regular. Well, I know where I went today, it was 5 cents less per gallon. Now, modern engines have knock sensors. So if you're getting that knocking noise, then the computer knows and will retard your ignition timing. It'll delay the time of the spark in the cylinder, which reduces your mileage a little bit, but it helps protect the engine from that knocking noise. So here in the Corvette, where I'm supposed to have 93, and I had 87, I decided to take it out and just do what I don't normally do, and that is beat on the car for purposes of education. So here's some scan data. My accelerator pedal position sensor is, well, the third PID down from the top, APP indicated angle. That's the accelerator pedal position sensor. Now, we used to call it a gas pedal, right? That thing you push to make the car go? Okay. And when you do that, it makes the throttle open. So this is the throttle. All right, so we say open throttle, pedal to the metal. It's like, vroom, vroom, vroom. Okay, so I'd pass this around, but your hands would get dirty if I did. And when I put the pedal to the floor, that's 99%, the computer then opens that throttle, and the next PID down here, the fourth one down, is throttle position indicated angle. That throttle was 100% open. And I was out on the open road, and I almost lost control of the car. It's a rear-wheel drive car made out of plastic. Got way too much power. And what was my knock retard? Second PID from the top, 0 degrees. The computer saw the knock but was not retarding the spark because it didn't need to. The knock sensor over on your left was not speaking, so to speak. So that's a good thing. All right. So what fuel should I buy? Only the best for my baby. Not. Okay. Octane booster affects volatility. What is volatility? The ability of fuel to vaporize is volatility. We need fuel to vaporize to get cold starting. So using premium in the winter is definitely not what you should do. Think about it. What causes the knock? Heat. In the wintertime, what's going into that engine? Cold air. All right, it's not going to knock with cold air. So there's a mass airflow sensor. It tells the computer how much air and the temperature of the air. It's all good stuff. But with cold air going in, we need volatility, and octane boosters affect the volatility of the fuel. So high octane fuel can inhibit easy starting. So answer, buy the lowest octane fuel your vehicle can take, is the answer to that. I periodically go to this website, if it'll link me. So effectively right now, the 10 gas stations, cheapest fuel prices in Elk Grove Village, $4.12 at Marathon. You know, I've been by there when they've have the lowest price. You get there and it's not that price. So I don't know where they're getting these from, but I mean, the rest of them are pretty consistent. But I know today I paid $4.08. So it looks like in the last few hours, prices continue to increase. Oh, well, in that case, don't drive a Silverado. How do you prepare for your emissions test? That's kind of something that's really a hassle, isn't it, more than anything? Now, my mom lives in Des Plaines. She's got to drive all the way out to Schaumburg, way out there by, Village Inn. She burns all that gas, having to, for the state to say, oh, hey, your car's clean. All right. Remember, there was a day where you would just drive in there and they'd take readings at idle, and they'd say, rev it up and take readings, and you're good. Then they started putting you on a dynamometer. So some cars would only pollute when you're really loading them down, and we don't do that anymore, right? Now we just let the computer tell the EPA whether the car is clean or not. Too bad they can't just go through the satellite. If your car is connected to the satellite, then the state would know that your car is clean and wouldn't they could send you a notification in the mail saying, by the way, we noticed your car is dirty. Well, that's Big Brother, right? So why does Big Brother care about my vehicle? Well, it's all air that we breathe, isn't it? Little bit of knowledge. What air that we're breathing right now, 78% nitrogen, 28% oxygen. It's the oxygen that pushes the piston down. So already this nitrogen's kind of getting in the way. And then 1% of other. Fuel is hydrocarbons. Well, that's what we pay for, right? Hydrogen and carbon. Okay, if you have a perfectly running engine, what comes out of the tailpipe? Water. Because this hydrogen, mix two of those with one oxygen, we get water. So when you see water coming out of the tailpipe, that's good, isn't it? All right, that's part of perfect combustion. And if we mix one carbon here with two oxygens there, then we get carbon dioxide. And that's considered perfect combustion. But just because your car is clean doesn't mean you're not contributing to climate change, because that's what CO2 is. All right. The nitrogen in the air should go in and out of the cylinder, unaffected. All right. So what's the EPA after? Unburned gasoline. So no matter what, a perfectly running engine is always going to have some small amounts of hydrocarbons coming out. That's what the catalytic converter is for, is to help clean those. And if we don't have enough oxygen, we have, instead of CO2, we'd have CO. We know what that does, right? People die from that. So this is kind of like CO, kill me now, CO2, kill me later. Okay? And if we have high flame temps, then this nitrogen and this oxygen are going to chemically combine into oxides of nitrogen, which is acid rain. So that's what the government's going after. Of course, they want to know that this guy's working good. All right, your catalytic converter. Why do people have to steal them? Okay. Well, there's precious metals in there, but come on, what they get for a stolen cat compared to what you got to pay to replace it. The good ones are about $1,000. Okay, so we don't want this trouble code. This is going to cost you some dough. We'll get back to that in a sec. So what happens is that this guy here connects to the exhaust manifold. So on that exhaust stroke that was in the movie, the exhaust comes out, and we look at the exhaust right here coming out of the engine. And if the catalytic converter is converting, we look at the oxygen coming out of the output of our catalytic converter. So the front one is supposed to look like this: rich, lean, rich, lean, rich, lean. And if the back one is doing this, the cat's not working. What happens? The check engine light comes on, and you need a new catalytic converter. Okay. To me, this is the best way to test, because we don't have to run the car on dynamometers. This is the old way, where we ran that old rear-wheel drive GTO on these rollers. If you're probably 40 years or older, you probably have had to do that sometime, or no, they run you through a drive cycle. And now, if we get this code, this P for powertrain 0420, catalytic system efficiency below threshold. This costs, okay? This is $500 to $1,000 repair. We don't want it, but if it's not working, you're going to be polluting the air, and we all breathe the air, so it's kind of all of our responsibilities, right? So Watchdog isn't part of the slide. Here's the monitors from, let's see, my engine misfire was ready. Fuel system, kind of catalytic converter. So ready means the monitors have run. We'll get into that just a little bit. How did I pass? I have a DTC with a P2128. Ever since I agreed to start teach this class, my check engine light's been coming on. My gas cap light came on. Today, my tire flat light came on. Okay. It's made for some great training aids, but this is unusual for me. Your O2 was ready. So why did I pass the test when I have a diagnostic trouble code? That code has nothing to do with clean air. Okay, this trouble code was for my accelerator pedal position sensor. So because you're around here, don't we have slush and snow and all kinds of stuff that might get off your shoe on your accelerator pedal? Okay, so when your check engine light comes on, what do? Well, that's another slide. All right, so just to have knowledge of how this works. So my status, my catalytic converter ran the test and passed. Evaporative emissions, heated O2 sensor, and the heater in it, all completed. We had the one code, but the malfunction indicator lamp was not illuminated because the lamp is for emissions. So the accelerator pedal position was nothing to do with emissions. Now, let's say you have a check engine light on, and you go, I want to fool the EPA. I'm going to get a code reader. Like these things are only like $100 or so. And, you could go in and use this, or disconnect the battery and erase the code. Simple enough, right? When I erased the code, what did I do to my monitors? I erased all them, because they don't want you down the street from the emissions lane disconnecting your battery and going in with no codes. So now you got to drive the car for a while to get the monitors to run. So all they do is hook up a tool to say the monitors ran and there's no codes, at least none that are related to clean air. So I've got this tool. It was a cheapo. They don't make them anymore, but it's a great training aid. All right, it's called the Ready or Not tool. So when I erase all my codes, now none of my monitors were ready. So there would have been a waste of time for me to take this to the state test lane right now, because the car would fail. even though it's not dirty. It's just the problem is the monitors haven't run. So our oxygen heater light turned on in a minute. So that turned green. And 11.1 miles later, my O2 sensor passed. And then 19.3 miles for the catalytic converter to pass. And notice how the ready light came on with that, because we had 3 passes. So the ready light came on, and as long as the evap monitor didn't run, it can't fail, all right? So 87 miles later, 87 miles, the evap light monitor finally ran and passed. Okay, so that's what they say, you know, just because the car is fixed by a technician doesn't mean it's ready to go to the testing lane. You have to run it long enough to get the monitors to run and pass. All right, now the evap monitor only runs if your fuel level is greater than 15% and less than 85. If you're less than 50%, there's too much air in the tank. Could be a false failure. If you're over 85, not enough air in the tank. So here my tank was over 15, all right, so keep that in mind as far as trying to get that monitor to run. Okay, so from the days of dynamometer testing to today's IM, inspection and maintenance, what will the future hold? Perhaps the government will contact us when our vehicle needs service because the car talks to the satellite and the satellite communicates, and I would rather have that. Don't make me drive out to Schaumburg to get my car tested. Send me a note if it fails, and then I go get it tested. Okay. Oh, by the way, those oxygen sensors that we talked about, got a couple of them here. We got the traditional one, and boy, this thing does not look good. That's probably why I have it. And then the newer wideband O2 sensors. I mean, what these things go through, you figure, you know, you're putting them in right next to the engine before the cat and after the cat. And if the cat's doing its job, it actually, the output is hotter because it's burning up those pollutants. The fact that these things even last as long as they do are pretty amazing considering what, you know, where their geographic location is. All right, so when the light comes on, what do? This has probably happened to us all at one time or another. What do we have here? Okay, there's my accelerator pedal position code. Last test, it passed. This ignition, it passed. But since the code was cleared, it passed and failed. So it gives the technician some ideas, okay, of, there's even another list that says when the code first happened and when it most recently happened. So if the code happened 1,000 miles ago and hasn't happened since then, obviously it's, you know, not something I'm going to be overly concerned about. All right, so then I just use a different code reader because, you know, this one just basically gives you the code. The one on the left gives you a lot of data, but those are very expensive too. So check engine light is also called the MIL, malfunction indicator lamp, and OBD2 was one of the greatest things that the government finally required. The technology was available, but it cost the automakers to use it, so the government said, okay, everybody, any car sold in America has to have OBD2. So what happens when your light comes on? Don't run off to the dealer. Sometimes the DTC will clear on its own. If you don't have a code reader, go to AutoZone or similar. They'll check the code, make recommendations, and give you a printout if you ask. The recommendations are, well, my computer says that you should buy these parts. Well, I was in line, and a guy did have an evap code, and they said, well, the computer says you should pour this fluid in the gas tank. You know, no, that's not going to fix that evap code. So, you know, you can research it, just Google it. All right, so when I Googled that code, it talked about diagnosing it and definition of it, you know, what it means. So you can now get knowledge out of it before you even take it to your favorite shop. You know, that way when they say that you need headlight fluid, you like that one, okay. My code went away on its own. The accelerator pedal position sensor is subject to slush and snow, and the APP sensor tells the computer what to do, i.e. the rate of acceleration and deceleration. The computer then sends a command to the throttle actuator, which I showed you. And by the way, a flashing check engine light means what? catalyst damaging. So yeah, you get in a taxi cab and say, by the way, I noticed your check engine light's on. Oh, that thing never goes off. Well, you're wasting gas and you're possibly polluting the air. If it's flashing, you're damaging the catalytic converter. So, all right, so that accelerator pedal position and throttle position, here's the foot and with the accelerator, and you can see here mine was kind of looks like it's got salt residue, and the brake pedal doesn't look that good either. And this is where you hook that tool in. So that's where the EPA hooks in also to get the readings, where AutoZone would hook in. And here's a open throttle. This I got from off a BMW, and this is what I know Toyota had that issue for quite a while with unintended acceleration. Well, if this thing opens up all the way and sticks, the car is going to be going pretty fast, won't it? So it'll be unintended acceleration. So when I was hot wiring this and doing some of my own messing around with it, I hot wired it and got the throttle open. Although I pulled the wire out of it and it's stuck open. So sometimes they stick in the wrong position, and they do need to be replaced. So here's the gearing of it, by the way. You got this little gear that goes fast. We got a gear reduction to downs, like so. And then I took it apart. Look at all the electronics inside of this thing just to control the angle of the throttle. What happened to the old days where you just use your foot and through some cables and things like that, it'd open it up to where you want? But I guess necessity is the mother of invention. Okay. Is my car polluting when it's not running? Yes, one of the most common codes is the P0440. I tightened my gas cap and the problem went away on its own. Well, the gas cap's pretty mechanical, isn't it? Plus it's got an O-ring in there. So that's your most likely, if you get that code, AutoZone gives you the code, buy a gas cap, throw it on there, and it'll probably fix it. If it doesn't, there's vent solenoids, purge solenoids, there's a lot of things, and they have to use a smoke machine to find it. They plug, they put smoke into the system and look where it's leaking out, and that's what the fault is. So, how many computers does my old car have? 20. So when I go in for diagnostic information, and this was after I cleared codes, they list the ones with no communications first. Electronic suspension, folding top, I don't have a folding top, steering column, lock module. My driver position module had 6 codes. All right, so as you go as you go through here, they put the ones with the most codes first. And look, even some of these have, the most important one is my ECM down here, electronic control module, no codes. And so, yeah, these cars are complicated. You know what I did? Nothing. Am I worried that my steering column lock module has no communication? I can move the steering wheel. It locks when I take the key out. So I don't have to use like those bars that they use to keep people from stealing the car. Let's put a bow on it. We're wrapping this up, right? Helpful hints, driving habits, maintenance, tires, finding a good mechanic, upselling, computer flashing, and while I'm at it, thank you. Where's Donna? Donna says, I want to thank Donna, and she okay. We'll thank her when she gets back. Cell phones while filling up your car, causing fires. And I'm not going to read the whole article, but 150 cases. One person's phone was in his pocket. It started ringing. The fumes while he was caused to burn his leg. And, putting your phone on top of the car and things like that. Say, leave the phone in the car with the car door closed. So, just some free advice, especially for, my wife, she's the worst driver in the world. She drives me nuts, okay? And whenever we go places together, it's her car, because she doesn't like my cars. And she has to drive. And, with her getting the Bluetooth going and putting on makeup, and it's like, even my kids used to say, Mom, you're a distracted driver. Fortunately, she doesn't hit anything. So that's a good thing. But even like when the light turns green and we're still sitting there, I don't say anything anymore. I just wait, bite my tongue, and then the person behind us will honk the horn. I see, uh-oh, he's putting this on TV. My wife better not watch Channel 6.
You'll be in trouble.
Yeah. So, and with her, she needs to go to see the cell phone shrink because she is addicted. Okay. Then like at night, she'll be on her TikTok, just laughing like crazy. And laughing is good for you, but not when I'm trying to sleep. And that's why I think when I was reading it said like, touch the car to make sure that your body ground potential is the same as the vehicle. Okay, so I just remember when we were young, you'd grab like the refrigerator handle and get a shock. Or you'd go to the TV to change the channel before we had those clicker things, okay? And you'd get a shock. And then you'd touch it again and it wouldn't get a shock because now you and the device are on the same ground potential. So anyways, driving habits, that's what I was thinking about my wife. Is the engine driving the drive wheels or are the drive wheels driving the engine? We always think about acceleration, right? You're accelerating the car, the engine drives the drive wheels. Well, as long as you're pushing the gas down, there's probably just as much time as where your foot's off the accelerator, okay? So if the car's cruising down the road and you take your foot off the accelerator, the dynamic inertia of the drive wheels are now keeping the car going, and then through the differential and the transmission, it's turning the crankshaft. Well, as long as the crankshaft's turning, there's airflow through the airflow sensor. And if there's more airflow through the airflow sensor, we're going to burn more fuel out of the injectors. So look ahead. If the light is red, take your foot off the accelerator and shift the trans into neutral. Now, you might not have this on your car. You might not have a tachometer. All right, most cars don't. But you can see the difference here that right now my foot, I'm going 60 miles an hour. I took my foot off the accelerator and I'm now getting instant 28 miles per gallon. My engine is going about 1,800 RPM. Now, here I pushed it into neutral and my instant fuel economy, this went up to 69 miles per gallon. Why? Because the tachometer, the engine RPM is about 600. So we're going like 3 times slower than here, decelerating in drive versus decelerating in neutral. And I know it's not normal, most people don't do this, but because I have a tach and I love seeing this number more than this number, I'm used to just kicking it to neutral, coasting down, and my wife, she's in a race to get to that red light, okay? And I'll go, honey, the light's red. Oh, okay. But if you don't look ahead and notice this, besides wasting gas getting to that red light, what are you doing to your brake pads when you got to hit the brakes? All right, so that's going to save you some money in the long run as well. So the slower the crankshaft turns, the less the airflow through the airflow sensor, the less fuel is consumed. Oil changes, maintenance. Even nowadays, why are oil changes so expensive? Because a lot of the manufacturers are using the semi-synthetic or full synthetic oil. I know my car uses calls for right on the, if you don't know what to do, look at the oil cap. Where the oil goes in, it tells you what you should be using. And with that, just keep in mind that the manufacturers have to meet mileage standards, and if their average, corporate average fuel economy, CAFE, doesn't meet the mileage standard, the company gets penalized financially. So they do everything they can to squeak out the best mileage they can, even if it's using oil that's thinner than they should use, because that's less crankshaft drag. So, but my oil cap says Mobil 1, 5W30, so that's how you know what to use. Now, checking it regularly, the dipstick here on the left shows 3 holes. All right, so we got a quarter of a quart low, a half a quart, 3/4 of a quart low, And you can see mine are all covered because I religiously check my oil every month. This is what's going to happen over here on the right if you don't change your oil. It's cheap to do, especially considering the cost of repair if you don't change your oil enough. So when is that manufacturers recommended? Now, the dealers will say, oh, forget that every 3 months. But this synthetic oil has a lot more capacity. So when that change oil light comes on, now my daughter, she goes, it says I only have 10% oil. I said, no, you have 10% oil life left. If you had 10% oil, I'd say shut the car off and go into Walgreens and get yourself some oil. All right. Tire pressure, perhaps the most important thing you can do for mileage. And when I taught, most of the courses that I taught at the college, the first day we would bring the students' cars in, because I would teach a lot of the chemistry and go into a lot deeper so they understand how to fix the cars. But the first day we'd bring their cars in and test their hydrocarbons, their carbon monoxide, their oxygen, and oxides of nitrogen emissions. And we would document the info. I'd give an award. I'd give a free pen for the guy with the cleanest car, and that sort of thing, just to make a little fun out of it. But then I would have them check one tire, just one tire. We didn't have the time to check them all. Check one tire, and most every student in the class had tire pressure that was too low. Vehicles have tire pressure monitoring. My tires last for 3 reasons. 1, I don't beat on the car. I have run flat tires, they're $500 a piece, and I want to keep the rubber on the tire, okay? So I don't drive that much. I'm retired now, so I don't drive a whole lot. And most importantly, I maintain optimal tire pressure. Now, this was something that I got off the car, my tire and loading. Capacity, 2 people, it's a 2-seater. Combined weight of occupants and cargo should not exceed 423 pounds. That could be 2 drivers without my baseball bag and my hockey bag and all the other stuff that's in the back of the car. Whoever reads these things? Well, I did yesterday when I put this presentation together, okay? And it tells me what kind of tires calls for. So I got a flat today after I left here onto where I got to a house I'm working on. And this is sticking out of the side of my tire. Well, not the side, but the corner where you can't fix. When you get like right where the sidewall meets or the road. So I went in and asked the kitchen and bathroom guy fixing up the house, do you have a pliers? So I went to yank this out. Don't do that, okay? Because if you do that, well, again, I have a run flat tire. So the car, they don't have a spare on these things, so you have to have the run flats. And, from there, I drove it to my ball game in Bensenville, and it said 0 PSI in the tire, but it's still, you can drive on it. But my dash said, don't exceed 55 miles an hour. So I got on 390 to drive to Bensenville. I had it going about 65, and the rear end starts to shimmy. So I'm like, no wonder they don't want you going over 55. We'll return to that in just a moment. Now, tire pressure, 30 PSI, that's way too low. But with run flat tires, it's kind of a hard ride. So how do they balance that? By lowering the pressure. Okay, forget that. I want good mileage. The side of the tire says max 44, and that's cold. Now, if I go up to over 40, my gauge comes up and says your tire pressure is too high. So I usually try to keep it right around 40 to get maximum mileage. Keep it below the max, and that's what I would suggest you do. Okay. Now, a mechanic can't do that. Mechanic can only go up to what's on the placard. All right. Aluminum rims. The aluminum's lightweight, and they don't rust, but they pit. So, I get rim leaks. That's why every month or so I'm airing up my tires, and it just really kind of ticks me off. Because, you know, if you get a new tire, they'll grind off all that oxidation and then seal it. It just doesn't last that long. And if you have a car of any age, or older age, you probably have rim leaks yourself. So that's one of the disadvantages of aluminum rims. You say your tires last a long time. How long? How old are Bill's tires? How long should they last? This is embarrassing. The date code, this is on the Corvette tires, is the week and the year. So week 37 of 2009. That's an old tire. There's still tread on it though. A lot of tread. Okay. Week 47 of 2010. I do like this over here. That's why I didn't crop this picture. Made in the USA. Okay. I like that. Well, this one here I wanted to have like the brake rotor here and the caliper. So if you ever deal with having to get brakes. Now it looks like this one, 16th week of 2016. That's still old. This is embarrassing for me. Oh man, this is my Ford tire. Not only is it 2009, got some cracking in here. I'm glad I did this. I know I need some tires. Okay. This is my wife's, all of hers were 3021, 2021, because got a good deal on Cooper tires over at Pep Boys. And then what is this? Finally, my 79 Datsun 280ZX, 2014, 2015. Looks like this has hit some sidewalls or some curbs. That's 2017. And then the other one was completely wiped off. Okay. That was embarrassing. But finding a good mechanic. This is a tough one. Maybe look at, because where do you take your car? Yelp reviews. I look at, I did notice the place I go now, one of the disadvantages of retiring is I don't have the heated shop anymore at the college. So there's things that I just don't do anymore. I need a lift. EGM, which is Elk Grove Marathon, was over here when I mentioned how her Equinox, the wipers went bad, 2016, certifies used car, and they told her you got a warranty, so I went there and got it for free. So EGM also sent along, I was afraid to make this a commercial, but I told Donna, Don goes, that's where I can bring my car. So anybody else go to the EGM? Got a couple here. Okay. They're not cheap. They're good. They're honest. And everybody deserves, a fair wage. I'd rather maybe pay a little bit more and know that I'm not getting, you know what I mean. So we got your keychains and some really nice pens. So feel free. Oh, and then they also sent some discount coupons. So enough of the commercial, but I'm glad that some of the other people here have had good luck with them too. Looking for, I used to go to Kyra's in Elmwood Park for the same reason, but I don't really go to Elmwood Park anymore. But if you're from that area, Kyra Automotive, family business. And how do they get return business? Being honest and being fair. And that's all I want. That's all I expect from any services that I get in addition to automotive. Looking for the ASE certified? Well, only one technician has to be ASE certified to have the sign, but at least one does. And hopefully that shop promotes automotive service excellence. And do you see different mechanics every time you go into that shop? All right. Why do the mechanics leave? All right. I like going to a shop, and when I look in the windows, when I went to EGM Automotive, I see the same guys. And that's to me good, because it means that their employees are happy, and they take care of them. And when I go in there and say, well, hey, so-and-so did a great job last time. Oh yeah, he quit. The person who quit, was they the only ASE certified one at the shop? I don't know. So we don't know. Wrapping things up here. Need to have or nice to have? It's advisable for a technician to give the vehicle a thorough look over, especially when it comes to safety items. Good repair facilities will advise the customer whether the concern or concerns is or are imminent, and document concerns to revisit the next time the vehicle is in for service. Most dealership service writers get a bonus for upsells. Beware of this. If your vehicle is in for an oil change, as an example, ask them to put in writing what they say the vehicle needs. My mother was upsold an injector clean that she did not need. They told her, oh, you know, you really should have an injector cleaner. It'll help you. It's $130. They take a bottle, pour it in your gas tank. You know, she didn't need it. But the writer made a spiff, they call it. You know, made a commission for upselling. When my wife went in for her free windshield wiper motor repair, they tried to sell her a throttle clean, a throttle service. All right, well, there was a lot of miles on this car, and there's a little bit of dirt in here. Do I need to spend $120 to clean the dirt off of there? If they indeed do it, okay. So I would have them document it, maybe take it for a second opinion, and don't say, oh, hey, this is what they say. Just, you know, see what they say and compare it to what the other people told you. Computer flashing, what's that all about? Many service issues today are repaired by reprogramming the vehicle's computers. Reprogramming or flashing the computer's program is performed only with special equipment that typically only a dealership has. Examples include adjusting transmission shift points, revising spark timing, etc. So we have to download the program from an OEM website, which costs money. Then we have the laptop and the J2532. Here's an example of one that I have. It's made by Bosch. So basically you're taking the electrons from the satellite through the laptop, through here, connected to the diagnostic link connector. And it's not something that the do-it-yourselfer does. But I knew a guy that thought he needed a transmission overhaul, and he needed a reprogram. I went in and reprogrammed his computer for him. The transmission was fixed. Now, had he brought that to a transmission shop, that shop doesn't have the ability to do the reprogramming. Would they have sold a trans overhaul anyways? I don't know. So that's what flashing is all about. And finally, the end.